Welcome back. The government has picked up another seat in the House of Commons with the defection of Conservative MP Matt Genereux to the Liberals. To discuss that and the politics of deficit, among other things, is politics professor at Acadia University and chair in political leadership and trust, Alex Marland, who is in Toronto tonight, but keeping his eye very well trained on the Maritimes. Good to see you.
Hi there, Todd.
That's your latest book is on just this. How does Mr. Genereux's decision to cross the floor change the landscape in the House of Commons?
Well, I think, a lot of times people are going to look at this and they treat it like a scorecard. So they're going to be counting how many seats, Mark Carney and the Liberals are away from a majority versus a minority. To me, that's a bit simplistic because the reality is that, even if he did meet that magical majority threshold, he's now 3 seats away from it, you would still end up having a lot of challenges to get things forward on a regular basis. The real issue here, frankly, the story is about Pierre Poilievre and losing people. This is now 3 people that we've seen leave the Conservatives, of course, among them Chris d'Entremont, who kicked this off on Budget Day. And it really tells you that there is some dissatisfaction going on within the Conservative Party with the leadership of Pierre Poilievre, and obviously a number of people who are attracted to the leadership of Mark Carney.
So there's been some space now, Alex, between Chris d'Entremont's defection and now Genereux. They didn't come quick, and they didn't come quickly, as a lot of people suspected. Can you read anything into that?
Yes and no. The reality is a lot of these things have to do with individual decisions made by individual MPs. There could very well be other MPs, whether in the Conservatives or, very possibly within the NDP and their small caucus, less so in the Bloc Québécois, who are also thinking, maybe I want to join the Liberals. The interesting story for me has always been, how is it that there are so many Liberals who can live under Mark Carney, given that they were elected originally with the Trudeau Liberals, who are much more left-wing than Mark Carney is.
Yeah.
So a lot of this all comes down to, I think, your connection with a leader. If you feel inspired by a leader, that makes a difference.
Does Pierre Poilievre worry as much about this perhaps now as he might have before he got such a rousing support at his at the convention?
Well, I think what happens with his sort of support from the party at the convention, it allows Pierre Poilievre to pivot a little bit more so that he's not as worried about that anymore. He doesn't have to be quite as right-wing. He can move more towards the center and put some pressure on Mark Carney. We've seen some of that. He's being a little more friendly. He's, engaging with the journalists in ways that he didn't before. And so he's trying to take a softer approach. And the only thing is right now is we're in a moment where, for the most part, Donald Trump is a big variable in all of this, and Mark Carney seems to have the edge for anybody who's concerned about Donald Trump.
The NDP support seems to have bottomed out in a very odd way. How does that hurt the Conservative Party?
Well, it hurts the Conservative Party because we know that when, the NDP, support for the NDP gets siphoned off from the Liberals, that brings down the vote of the Liberals, and it means that the Conservatives are able to win and squeak by in seats. I think on the story of floor crossing, it's worth watching that in March next month, we're going to see a new leader of the NDP. And that means that all of the NDP MPs are now going to be asked, do I want to serve under this leader? Whether or not they end up being attracted to the Carney Liberals, it would be a fascinating story, given that you would have people coming over from one side of the spectrum as well as from the other.
Earlier in the show, just to switch gears a bit, we reported on how governments around here in New Brunswick and Nova Scotia might handle record deficits. All the provinces are looking at tough balance sheets. Cuts seem to be a given. Already there are suggestions that maybe the New Brunswick's finance minister should step down. What kind of jam are the provincial finances in, or finance ministers in? And I'll include Newfoundland, because you spend a lot of time there and you're up on the politics there for sure, and really their situation isn't a lot different.
Yeah, well, about Newfoundland, I'd say that the finances there have been a disaster for well over a decade. So I think what's really going on now is that Mark Carney is sharpening people's focus on spending. So under Justin Trudeau, we saw deficits every single year that he was in power. It seemed like the government could continue borrowing forever. under Mark Carney, there's still a lot of borrowing going on, but there's also a lot of spending on things like defense that a lot of people weren't anticipating initially. But what Carney is doing is saying we need to find ways to make government smaller. We need to cut the number of public servants. And what that does is that sets the tone for the rest of the country. That essentially tells all other premiers, hey, you should be doing this too. You should be looking at ways to shrink your spending, because you can't run deficits forever. Here's the thing that Canadians should really be worried about. What if the economy does go into a tailspin? That's exactly when you need a government to be borrowing money, and we're already set up to be reducing spending just as the economy looks like it's on the brink.
Okay, lots to think about there. Alex Marland, we always appreciate your insight. Thanks a lot from Toronto tonight.
All right, my pleasure.
We'll take a break. We'll be back with much more after this.